Welcome into NHL Tonight, first shift for a Thursday, January the 23rd, 2025. EJ Hradek here alongside Steve Konroyd, and we had a good night last night of 4 games, enough that you could kind of get your hands on everything and really see a lot last night. Good matchups. But we're going to go first things first. We got to start with the Columbus Blue Jackets and with Adam Fantilli, because we talked about it yesterday, Steve, that he had bought like 70 tickets. And he was really playing for free in the game last night with all his friends and family there. Well, maybe he better buy some tickets more often, because he gets a hat trick in the game. His mom's throwing her hat out there. And the Jackets get a big, big win in Toronto.
And here it is. I think upcoming you'll see mom and dad up in the stands. Well, maybe not, but I had an opportunity to talk with his parents when he was at Michigan still. They were at Notre Dame. I do the Notre Dame.
There they are.
There's mom, there's dad, and mom is...
She's prepared.
Yeah, she knew what was going to happen, and it was the empty...
There you go.
That's a good Chuck, too, and 2 happy parents. Great people. They were actually with the McGroartys. Rucker McGroarty and his folks, they came down to South Bend for the game, and just great people. And I had a chance today to talk to Billy Muckalt. Remember Bill Muckalt played for the New York Islanders? Yep. He coached at Michigan. He had him. He's at Lindenwood now, but he said, boy, he's a special player. He's just so competitive, but just wants to win all the time. And the tougher the game, the better his play. So I think we're just starting to see the beginning of Adam Fantilli and what a special player he can be.
Well, there's no question, right? He was a very high draft pick, and he was somebody that people talked about when he was 15 and 16 years old, and he made the decision to come play in the USHL. Not a lot of guys in Canada will do that. They'll play in the Ontario League. He wanted to, with the idea of playing college hockey at Michigan, and now he's with the Blue Jackets. And I agree with you. I think it's just the tip of the iceberg for this young guy, and what a good win for the Jackets last night, though. I mean, they haven't been very good on the road, but they go into Toronto, get a win. They're in Carolina tonight, another challenging game, but they've been a great story.
They have been. And, you know, you think about what happened in the offseason. Of course, it's well documented. Johnny Gaudreau and his brother passed away in a terrible bike accident. But they've really seemed to dedicate this season to him. And it's great to see. And kudos, too, to Meredith Gaudreau, the wife of Johnny Gaudreau. She said, make sure you're still having fun out there. Yeah. Because it could have been a down year. Everyone could have been just full of remorse and just such a downer. But they're using it as inspiration. And I think it's fantastic to see.
Yeah, they've had a great season. There's no question about that, playing well. And the game last night, it started off with a bang. I mean, you had a heavyweights going at it last night in Ryan Reeves and Matthew Olivier. And, I mean, this went on for like about a minute, and these guys were just throwing bombs. Reeves goes down. He gets back up. He throws the helmets go flying. Reeves' helmet. I mean, this is just like watching our buddy Stu Grimson and Bob Probert back in the early 90s. I mean, this is no joke.
A 1-minute fight seems like a 1-hour fight when you're actually throwing them, because I've been in fights and they maybe last 25, 30 seconds. It seems like
the heart is pounding out of your chest.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And these guys are just throwing bombs. And I like how they're playing defensive, too. They're tying each other up. It's not just all haymakers. Those guys know how to fight. So, yeah, it was, you know, hey, listen, I'm old school, so it's good to see still.
Yeah, it was, it set the tone for the game. And it was interesting because, you know, I watched the tape of it, and the thing I noticed afterwards was, like, there wasn't, like, a rousing, like, the crowd wasn't, like, kind of in a fevered pitch, as you think they would. I mean,
like in Montreal,
that's right. You're right.
Went crazy
when he's getting involved. Like, these are 2 big guys. I think it was Reeves' first fight of the season. And after the game, I was really fascinated because the Leafs lose 5-1, right? The captain is Austin Matthews. He scored a goal again last night. It wasn't their night. The goalie didn't play well for Toronto. And Elvis Merzlikins played really good for Columbus. But afterwards, you know, I think Austin wanted to really just talk about how Ryan Reeves has been a great team guy. Even when he's not been in the lineup, he's been very supportive, and he contributed in this game last night. And he made mention that he noticed the same thing I noticed, that the fans were like, you know, didn't bring that energy that you usually see in a moment like that. We got Matthews' comments. Maybe we could just play Matthews' comments, and we could talk about it on the other side.
It was great, obviously. I mean, that's still a big part of the game, and he's a big part of this team. And you love to see that. Would have liked a little more energy, from the crowd after that. I thought, it was a little quiet tonight, especially after, a guy, 2 guys like that go at it. But it was, I think, a great moment for him. I thought gave us some energy on the bench, and obviously, he's been looking for one for a while. So you got to give kudos to the guy on the other side as well.
So it was interesting, though, that that Austin took note of that as well. He's the captain of the team now, and it's been a really good year for the Leafs. They're in first place. But I know, having, been up there in Toronto for games, a lot of times the fans are underneath still. They're not always in the seats.
Late arrivers.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that you want to be calling out the crowd when you lose 5-1 and a guy gets in a great fight. And listen, it should lift the team, but that should be within the bench. And he mentioned it. He said, it energized the bench. Yeah. But I wouldn't go out of my way. He didn't go out of his way, but I wouldn't be talking about the crowd, not appreciating what Ryan Reaves does. Now, as you mentioned, Ryan Reaves, I think, has been catching a lot of heat in the press as far as either not fighting or maybe not being in the lineup and the team's still doing okay. Yeah. He's trying to be a good teammate, but I don't think you want to bring the crowd into it because, hey, listen, if that happens on the road, that energizes your team, and sometimes you can go on to win a game with a big fight. So I wouldn't be blaming your own fans. Yeah,
it was interesting, though, because that can go a lot of different ways. I did tend to agree with him, though, that I didn't think there was really the energy that you would expect in that moment. But nonetheless, Blue Jackets win. They're in Carolina tonight. The Leafs get ready to play the Ottawa Senators. Want to also talk about what happened with the Devils last night. Devils have been slumping lately. They're playing the Bruins. They win 5-1, but look what happens to Jacob Markstrom. He goes down in a lot of pain. He had to be helped off the ice. And talking to, listening to Sheldon Keefe afterwards, he said, hey, he's going to miss some time. And they didn't really specify, but that does not look good to me, Steve.
No, he is leaving the ice gingerly, and that was Brazeau who went into him. And there's what.
Yeah, there it is. He's going to miss some time with the injury in the second period.
Yeah, and I also think he didn't say it was day to day. I think I also heard that he might have said week to week. So that is certainly going to be a longer time frame. The New Jersey Devils, that's certainly not going to help them because Markstrom is their best goalie right now. And we should point out, too, Brazeau, who went in, wasn't his fault. I think he stepped on Dylan's stick, and that's how he lost his balance and went hard into Markstrom. So
and he's a big man.
Yeah, hopefully.
There it is again. Take a look.
And there.
He got the stick in there a little bit.
And, there's no give. Well, there is give in the post, but sometimes there isn't.
I think he's leg pushed right into that pad, and then the leg got tied up in there, and yeah, it's not a good thing. Jake Allen came off the bench. The Devils ended up winning the game 5-1. Now, the good news, if there is any for the Devils, if this is not that serious, is we are coming up to the break in a few weeks for the Four Nations tournament. Now, Markstrom is part of Team Sweden,
right?
So bad news for Team Sweden. But perhaps if there's a time to have an injury that could keep you out for 4 weeks, and I'm speculating, maybe this isn't such a bad time because Jake Allen could probably run with the ball for the next couple of weeks. You get the break, and then maybe you talk about getting him back. But just sad to see because he's played so well.
Well, that's it. And I'm sure he wants to play in the Four Nations. And
that's right.
Ullmark, another goaltender who's not playing right now in the Four Nations for Team Sweden, on the shelf. But I think he should be back relatively shortly. So I think Gustafsson might be the other thing. He's the third
Gustafsson has been the best of the guys, I think, when you look at the numbers all year long. But certainly you like to have options, and you like to have a guy like Markstrom. So we'll see. I think we have the Devils' schedule. We can take a look at kind of where it's going from here for the Devils. And I don't know if we have. All right, we don't have it. But at any rate, like I said, if it happens in November and there's game after game after game and you're missing them, maybe this is if you're going to have an injury, that's
Now's
not.
the time.
Yeah, maybe now is the time. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. Keep our fingers crossed for Jacob Markstrom. So in the end, the Devils do get the victory last night. Here's a look at the Thursday schedule. And we got a bunch of games as we normally do on a Thursday. Sens, Bruins, Canadians, Red Wings, Flyers, Rangers, Jackets, as I mentioned, in Carolina, Golden Knights and Blues in St. Louis, Minnesota hosting Utah tonight. They get some key guys back in the lineup, including Kaprizov. You can see the Sabres out in Calgary. Get a rematch of the Oilers and the Canucks. No McDavid, no Myers in that game. The Penguins and Ducks, Capitals and Kraken, and then a rematch at 10:30 in San Jose, Predators and Sharks, and the Preds beat San Jose in that crazy comeback in Nashville just a couple of days ago. They were down in the game. I think it was 5-1. They won 7-5. Nashville's won 4 in a row, so maybe they could use this as a chance to kind of move forward in the right direction. Here's what, as I mentioned with Minnesota, they have activated Kaprizov and their captain, Jared Sturgeon, from the injured reserve. So that's great news for the Minnesota Wild moving forward. So that's listen, we always want to see Kaprizov playing. I mean, he is fun to watch.
Oh, he is. He's a dynamic player. He's powerful. He reminds me a little of Nathan MacKinnon Plays the wing, though. Nathan McKinnon, more centerman. I'm looking at Minnesota, and, they just beat Colorado. What have they done here? Yeah, Nashville, I think here's what they've done without Kirill Kaprizov.
Yeah.
Now, the first 6 were great. They were 5-0.
But isn't this a great example, Connie, of when you miss a great player, you can get by for a while.
Yes, exactly.
And then, eventually it catches up with you. You can see their first 6, almost 3.7 goals per game. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
These last 6, though, it starts to wear on you. Maybe you're missing another piece. All of a sudden, you're not scoring. Your power play goes down. You're giving up more goals because maybe you're chasing games now.
Yeah.
So it's more of a struggle. So that's good news to get these guys back.
Yeah, and Spurgeon means a lot, too. We're talking about Kaprizov there. Spurgeon, he was out most of last year, and they really missed his services.
Yeah, so the Minnesota Wild, they've been a great story this year, and they're still in that Central Division. They're right there chasing Winnipeg, and Dallas has played better, and Colorado has figured it out. So very, very interesting to see how things are going. Let me ask you about that matchup out with Edmonton and Vancouver, because you have a big event kind of game where there's a nasty game and guys are suspended. Now, the 2 participants on each side are suspended and not playing, right? But and you can see it here. McDavid got tied up with Garland. He ends up giving the stick to the chops, and then away from the play, Myers just tees off with a stick to the face of Bouchard. I thought it was worse than the one McDavid handed out.
That's pretty bad too, though. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not good.
No.
And they both got suspended each for 3 games. Yeah. But you can see the one with Myers in your upper left of your screen there. Hello. Yeah, that's Ty Myers. Such a big guy too. I mean, he's like a monster on the ice. Doesn't need to do that and Bouchard is not somebody that's really frightening to deal with.
And it's the heat of the moment. Guys have to learn how to maybe slash a stick or slash a guy in the pants.
Or drop your stick.
Or drop the gloves. Yeah, exactly. But, for a lot's being made about Connor Garland. The game's in Edmonton, and it's like he's on the most wanted. In fact, Rick Tocchet talked about it. He goes, he's on a most wanted poster. He says, that was a hold. That's all he was doing. Yeah. He was holding the best player in the league. Yeah. Maybe there should have been a penalty, and we can go on and on about that. But I don't think there'll be any retribution. I mean, Connor Garland was just doing what he thought he should do, and
to try to win the game at the very end of the game.
At the very end of the game.
Yeah.
And preserve the 1-goal lead, and they did.
Yeah. So they will go at it again tonight. We'll see the Canucks and the Oilers. When we come back, it's that time of the week. Time for the Super 16. Time for Dan Rosen. Where does he have the Jackets? Where does he have the Canadians? Very curious to see what he's come up with this week. Dan Rosen, Super 16 next on First Shift. It's time for the Super 16 presented by Enterprise, and that means there he is, Dan Rosen, back where he belongs, in his office at home and not here. The roles were reversed last week. I was in Michigan, surprising you, though. You didn't expect me.
I was shocked. I didn't know it was coming. I was sitting there, and it came in, and it was like, oh, what is happening now? We don't need this.
It was like
Nobody
a hurricane.
Wants this.
Was he at the Prospects game?
Yeah, it was a lot.
No,
of pain.
he was sitting right where you're sitting.
Oh, he was here.
Yeah.
I was right there.
And I was
in the
hotel room.
But you know what? It made for a better segment.
Yeah, you were surprised, and I came out swinging, and it was all good.
It did.
Yeah. All right, good. Well, new week, new Dan Rosen. Let's get her going, Dan. What do you have for me?
Let's get her going. All right, so you got 16. You got the Columbus Blue Jackets.
And listen, my God!
Almost out. Beat Toronto 5-1. New York Rangers are in there, 15. They got to get in at 6-0-3 in their last 9 games. Playing much better hockey, defensive structure. Igor Shesterkin's on a shutout streak, so good for the Rangers. They're in at 15. The Tampa Bay Lightning lost to Montreal, lost to Toronto. That was after winning a couple of games. You know what? This is not a lock here at all for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They are skidding here, if you ask me. But body of work, better than the Rangers and the Blue Jackets. Also better than the Ottawa Senators as well. So they are in there at 14.
Wow.
The Devils are at 13. They drop, obviously. They drop the Devils with the lack of offense. Maybe the breakout game against Boston. Well, maybe the game against Boston is a breakout game.
Yeah, well, they're dropping like a stone. There's no question about that. They got some key injuries as well. But, Dan, Columbus is at 16. They've been a great story. They're 7-2-1. They went into Toronto, won last night. I mean, you got to get them up higher than 16.
Great They lost in a shootout, didn't score a goal against the New York Rangers.
All right,
and they
well,
lost
that's
3-1
one
to the New York
loss.
Islanders.
That's one loss.
2 losses.
But they won in Toronto, went into Toronto in impressive fashion. 7-2-1
That's
in
why
their
they're
last
still
10. Been a great story. Connie, they've been a great story.
I love the story. And I mean, everything that happened to them in the offseason and to do what they're doing right now. And the youngsters, Fantilli, Johnson.
Yeah.
And how about the old guy, Zach? Well, he's not that old. Zach Werenski.
Yeah, he's not that old.
I think it's a great story.
Yeah, I think better than 16. Right? Come on.
I didn't see Calgary on there. I think does Calgary.
Well, we'll find out. Who knows with him? Anybody could be on there. All right, here we go.
No Calgary. The Los Angeles Kings, they do get a win against Florida last night, but they lost 4 of 5 prior. In their last 8 games, one of them, they scored 5 goals against Vancouver. The other 7, they've got 10 goals. Need to get some more offense. Minnesota getting some guys back. That's good. Beat Colorado to end the 3-game losing streak, so they had to drop. Montreal. See, they're not in a playoff spot, the Montreal Canadiens right now, but they have really righted themselves. 13-3-1 in their last 17 games. They've won 2 straight, 4 of 5. So to me, the Montreal Canadiens, even though they're not in a playoff spot, they got to move up. They're in the top 10. And the Florida Panthers, listen, this is a tough week because the Florida Panthers, I think, are better than number 9. But, they're inconsistent right now, not getting enough done. They did beat Anaheim twice. They lose to L.A. 6-7-1 in the last month. But they're better. And then you look at some of the other teams that when we flip it to the top 8, some of these other teams are in a bit of a struggle right now, too.
I wonder if Florida is just kind of like, we know what we got. We know what we're capable of doing. And as you mentioned, Dan, they win one, they lose one. But I think when push comes to shove and the playoffs are right around the corner, they're going to up it a gear. And they know how to up it a gear.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think they're probably looking to make an acquisition or 2 at the deadline. But, we do the power rankings, it's where we are now. Like, I have a lot of belief. I'm like with you, and I think Dan would agree. We like the Florida Panthers. They're a team that could go back and be there again. But right now, when you look at this list and these teams bubbling up and down, I kind of agree with you, Dan, that, maybe they don't need to be that high. In fact, I might have Montreal ahead of them. I might have Columbus ahead of them right now just because of the way the teams are playing. It doesn't mean, I think, that the Panthers are any less likely to be the team that represents the East. I just think right now it's a struggle.
Yeah.
It's a struggle. But anyway, let's get to this top 8 because I'm curious the teams that are in and they're out.
All right. Well, the Vegas Golden Knights are still in the top 8, but one of those teams that's really struggling right now. 4 losses in a row and 6-7, but I have to keep them in the top 8 because of what we were just talking about. Some of these other teams, and I can't keep. Listen, Montreal's been a great story, but they can't keep climbing ahead of all these teams, and before you know it, they'll be like 5, and that's not warranted right now for the Montreal Canadiens. Dallas lost 3 of 4. Montreal, Colorado, and Carolina. But I like the Dallas Stars. I drop them a little bit. I drop the Golden Knights.
Who was that they lost to? Was that Montreal, did you say?
Yeah, listen, Montreal's beating a lot of good teams. I'm going to give them a lot of credit. They are.
But that doesn't matter to you, right?
They're beating a lot of good teams.
Doesn't matter to you. Beat as many good teams.
They're in my top 10 for the first time. I mean, let's see it. Let's keep going. Let's keep going for the Canadiens.
Well, they've already beaten like a bushel of good teams.
So you know what? They beat Washington, too, so they should be 1, right? Let's put them at number 1.
No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that.
I'm not saying that.
I'm saying they have their wins that they've rolled up in this last 6 weeks. I think they've beat all of the last 5 or 6 Stanley Cup winners in that run of wins. I'm just saying, Dan, they've had quality wins, and so maybe you bump them into that 7-8 area.
Maybe next week.
Next week.
All right. Maybe next week.
Maybe next week.
Maybe next week.
Toronto,
I know they
maybe
lost.
next week.
I get it. Toronto lost to Columbus, but before that, they beat New Jersey, beat Montreal, and they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning. Okay.
Yeah.
So there is that.
Right.
Listen, you know what? You want to win against Columbus, make your own noise. How about that?
Right.
Carolina is number 5. We don't see it right now, but Carolina's in at number 5.
There it
3
is.
wins in a row. Vegas, Chicago.
Don't try to boss around the
Dallas.
graphics people here, Rosen.
Hey.
They'll get to it. They'll get to it. Way better at their job than you are at yours.
Than yours as well.
Okay.
And, Carolina, move them up. They keep winning some games. They're finally stabilizing, it seems.
And I go back to quality of wins. Carolina wins a lot of games. They win a lot of one-goal games.
They do.
And they're still wins. I mean, a win's a win.
That's
but,
right.
boy, they're in a lot of close games.
A lot of tight ones.
A lot of tight ones.
All right. What's the top 4?
All right. Top 4, Colorado. is number 4. Move them up one spot. Another team, inconsistent a little bit of late. But, I mean, I really like the Colorado Avalanche a lot. So they lose that game to Winnipeg. If they won it, it probably would have flipped, but it goes to overtime. They lose 3-2 in overtime. Winnipeg beats Colorado. They're at 3. Previous to that, they lost to Calgary and Utah. But last week, EJ, you said something to me last week, that since their great start when they won 15-1, they've been kind of middling, like 500. Well, they're 14-6-3 since a 4-game losing streak. So they're not middling. They're a good team.
Since a 4-game losing streak. So if you add those 4 games, it's 14-10-6, and those 6 are losses, I believe, right? They're not wins when you have an overtime. So now you add those in, you're 14-16. What's that?
14-6-3.
All right, but you said after a 4-game losing streak.
Right, so which makes you 14-10-3. But regardless,
and then you're 14-13.
One 10-game segment didn't go their way this year, and they were 3-7 in that 10-game segment. Otherwise, they've been
really good.
Excellent.
Hey, listen, they've been really good all year. For the, they had the big start. They haven't been quite as good as who's going to be that good all year long. Nobody's 82-0. Nobody's going to win every single game. Yeah. But I do notice you caved a little bit to me. You put the Oilers at 2 this week. Now that they've lost 2 in a row, you're always a little bit behind.
Listen,
but
lose to Washington.
Yeah.
McDavid. Right, so but I mean, listen, they had 4 wins in a row and 8-9 before their last 2 games.
Yeah, they've been playing great.
And then the Washington Capitals,
they've been playing great.
They're playing great. Washington Capitals have points in 11 straight, 8-0-3 in those games.
Yeah. Listen, I would tell you, I would agree. It's a hard week. Obviously, Capitals at 1 is the easiest pick on the board right now. They've been playing great. They're winning. Yes. That's easy. After that, it gets harder. And like some of the teams, Steve mentioned the Flames. I'll mention the Flyers. I did their game on Saturday, and boy, what a hard-working win over the Devils. And they had another overtime win against Detroit. I mean, they are blocking shots and hanging in there. And, so that's another team that's kind of moving up. But it's hard because you're right. There's more than, there's a lot of teams. That bottom 8 you have, your 8 through 16, you could probably take 5 teams that are not in it at all and mix them in there as well. So I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
That's why on January 23rd, we have no idea who the buyers and sellers are for the trade deadline. Because there's so many teams in it right now. Mm-hmm. At this point, we might have 3 sellers right now.
That's right. I agree with you.
Chicago, San Jose, probably if they have anybody to sell. Anaheim, right? Yeah. But listen, who knows? What Nashville? Nashville could be in there.
4 in a row.
4 wins in a row, right?
That's right.
Like they could be in there. Who knows what's going to – this is tough. And then you have teams like Vegas and Dallas and Florida who are, struggling a little bit.
Yeah, and we know that they're good teams. And that's not the point of this. We know those teams are good. The point of this is who's doing well right now. Dan, nice job. As always.
Hey, man, I appreciate that.
Well, I don't know about as always, Steve. I mean, I don't know. I don't even really know as always. I think it's a lot of documentation that it's not as always. Yeah. This is the rare
I'll be back
moment.
in that seat. Next week, I'll be back in that seat.
Oh, you're coming in next week. All right.
That's right. I'll be back.
Listen, I look forward to see. As much as I joke with you, I always love spending some time with you. So I look forward to you being here so I can beat you up in person.
Perfect. Can't wait.
All right. Cut his mic. Get him out of here. When we come back, we're going to talk to Allan Kreda. Has just written a really great new book on Kenny Morrow and those Islander years, his time with the 1980 Olympic team. Allan Kreda next on First Shift.
Super 16 is presented by Enterprise. We're here to keep you moving forward, whether it's around the corner or around the world. Official partner of the NHL.
A magic combination for the New York Islanders. Team up to put the icing on the cake.
LaFontaine at the blue line. He scores!
Next, Fantilli finds Brian Trottier with a neat pass, and the Islanders build the foundation for celebration.
Oh, I love those old highlights there. Here's a tweet from Allan Kreda. He is the author of a new book on Kenny Morrow's life, Miracle Gold, 4 Stanley Cups, and a lifetime of Islanders hockey, and we're really happy to have Allan joining us now. Allan covers the New York area teams for AP, worked for the New York Times for many, many years. Allan, thanks for the time.
You're welcome.
How did this come together for you? How did you decide this was a project you wanted to take on?
It was very organic, as these things go. Kenny and I were talking for a hockey news piece I was working on 2 years ago. It was during the Islanders' 50th anniversary season, and all the dynasty guys were around, and Hockey News asked me to talk to as many as I could. And in the course of that series of interviews, Kenny and I were chatting, and I just said, your stories are so amazing, and they come from two incredible pools of winning. It would make a great book. What do you think? And he said, if you think it's got some legs, let's go for it. And one thing led to another, and we just kept talking. I said, we'll go year by year, game by game, win by win, and you'll see it'll reach critical mass. And because you won on such a stage twice, unlike any other player really in the history of the game, to have an Olympic gold medal followed by a Stanley Cup 3 months later to the day, and then do it 3 more times. I said that legacy story has to be told for both sets of winning players, your Olympic teammates and your Islander teammates.
You know, Allan, I played with Kenny for parts of 4 years, and he's the most humble guy I think I've ever played with. Very self-deprecating too at times. Great sense of humor. Did all those things come out, and how did you pull these stories out of him? Because, you know, he's not warm and fuzzy when it comes to kind of talking about himself.
Yeah.
They did. They just sort of manifested. I said, well, we'll watch the games together. You pull up a game on YouTube and go through it, and then you're seeing details, nuances, moments. We started with 1983 with the Cup final, Game 4, his empty net goal, cementing that win, cementing Cup 4, and the stories just started coming. He's like, wow, I remember this, I remember that. I remember it in the group hug between he, Bob Nystrom, John Tonelli, joined by Dennis Potvin, and everyone else. Eventually, Kenny kept saying, I love you guys, over and over again. And I said, well, that's a good place to start. We can draw from that throughout. And that was the theme. It was a feel-good memory bank of stories. And once Ken got going, we kept going. And it was fun. It was fun for him. It was fun for me. It was fun for me to reach out to his teammates, get their perspectives. You get the humor along the way. Bob Nystrom said he never said maybe 7 words a season. All he did is do the right thing and help us win games. Of course, Bob, it was a little sort of miffed that he didn't pass him the puck on that 83 Cup final with an empty net. That was an easy one for Bob Nystrom, but Kenny got the glory on that one. And he said, all I wanted to do was get over the red line, look up, and boom, fire it straight directly into the net. So the stories just happened, and I had a feeling that would be the case because he's such a thoughtful player, thoughtful person. He saw the game so clearly. He did his job night in, night out, game in, game out. His story is just this legacy of dedication, perseverance, working hard, tenacity, something everyone can relate to at any level, no matter what their profession is. That's a story for the ages.
You know, I can't feel too bad for Bobby Nystrom. He was able to score a few pretty big goals in his time. Yeah, one in particular that I was there for, so I remember it pretty well. Allan, you mentioned it, right? I mean, what a crazy story. He goes from the 1980 Olympic team, which is, something that I think it was voted the sporting team or sporting event of the century.
Yes.
20 years later, at the end of the 1900s. And, still people who are old enough remember it now. Other younger people watched the movie that was made about it, a couple different movies made about it over time. So to go from that, like you mentioned, to then the New York Islanders and win 4 consecutive Stanley Cups and to win 19 straight playoff series, I mean, it's a crazy run. I want to take you back to the Olympic team because I know a lot of the Islander stuff. What did Kenny tell you about that team and that run in Lake Placid, which is one that obviously, has gone on? We've talked about that forever. I think we probably will talk about it forever, certainly in hockey terms.
It was such a road, a teamwork building road. So many games they played way before getting to Lake Placid, a 61-game season, traveling around the world. They were in Norway and Sweden and Finland. They were playing minor league teams where brawls were part of the night, NHL teams, CHL teams. So they had a year to build a team, and that's what they did. It was hard work. They were living off stipends. There was not money was certainly not a driving factor in any of this. It was the glory of playing for your country, and Herb Brooks, the disciplinarian coach, from day one did not make it easy. He tells the famous story of the skating in the dark in Norway after a game where things didn't go especially well. It's in the movie. It's been documented. The guy skating and skating and skating until it was just too much. But he he drilled it into them that they were going to be the best conditioned team when they got to Lake Placid. He did everything by design. Every scheduled game, there was a method. He purposely scheduled them playing the Soviets at Madison Square Garden, the last game of their season before the Olympics, and we all know what happened. It was a rout at the Garden just days before they get to Lake Placid and play Sweden. But they were ready. They were ready after going through all that, and I think they knew it, and they really knew it. And Kenny tells the story just throughout that Soviet game. As it moved along, they knew they had a chance because they were better conditioned when it came right down to it. They had to play 10 minutes with a lead after Mike Eruzioni's goal at the exact 10-minute mark. And Ken said it was much harder to play with that lead than it would have been playing with a lead for longer. So he actually liked that they had to come from behind. They tied the game early in the third, went ahead on that magical goal, and then the 10 minutes took forever, like 3 days. And how hard it was to keep the Soviets at bay, to keep playing their game, to keep them to the outside, to force them to make plays they weren't used to making, even down to last seconds. Soviets didn't pull the goaltender because, well, they never practiced that.
Yeah.
It wasn't part of their game plan. They were never behind late in games. So there was panic. He said we could see their frustration. They couldn't complete the passes they wanted. They couldn't get in position. We kept them to the outside. We just kept doing the things that frustrated them. And we had the speed and the discipline and the fortitude to will ourselves to the victory. And he said it's just the feeling of it getting down to 0 and the celebration unparalleled, but they still had to get ready for another game.
Yeah.
2 days later, and Herb Brooks put them through about the toughest practice on the Saturday between the Soviet win and the Finland gold medal game, because if they didn't beat Finland, no gold medal.
Yeah.
So one more literal hill to climb, as what we've heard over the years. They did it, and not easy, but Ken said, in his typical, I'm just doing my work, doing the right thing, getting ready. After they beat the Soviets, he made his way back to his accommodations, iced his shoulder for a couple of hours, just got ready. So I didn't really know there was such celebrations in the village. It's about the work. It's about the next game. It's about the next effort. Not about anything more than that. So no glory until there was glory. But he said they really enjoyed the moments the day after going to the White House, and that's when they got the feeling of how incredible their impact was and is for the people of the country. So they really didn't have a sense of that until after they won it all.
Yeah, Allan, you said something earlier that really stuck out to me. You mentioned adversity, and when you think of Ken Morrow, you think of, the Miracle on Ice, the gold medal, the 4 Stanley Cups. Where was the adversity? I know towards the end, because I played with him towards the end, he could barely move, but he was so good positionally. He was so sound positionally. He was still a very effective player. When he talked about adversity, where was it?
I think it definitely that 84 season. I mean, the grind was so pronounced after they managed to beat the Rangers in the Miracle Series with his goal in overtime, and then getting past Washington, getting past Montreal, coming back from 2 games down. They get to the final, chance to win 5. The epic 5 was at hand. They split those first 2 games at Nassau Coliseum, and then the Oilers just got on a roll, as we know, in those 3 back in Alberta. And the frustration of being that close, knowing they were that close, knowing, once that ship sailed, that was it. And we talked about how the tougher game, knowing that losing the first game, there was a 1-0 game on a goal by Kevin McClelland.
Yep.
Start the final, and if that's how it is, Kevin McClelland gets the goal. It wasn't Gretzky or Curry or Messier or Coffey. They knew they had their work cut out for them, and they did win game 2 in a rout, but then they just couldn't counter the Oilers machine back there. They couldn't get it back to Long Island, and the crushing nature of losing finally in Edmonton that game 5. He said it was the quietest flight home, not a word. You guys were so tired. It was 5 years of effort to a conclusion. It just was so hard. He hadn't been on the losing side since the 70s, basically.
Yeah.
Up until that point, he got close in college with Bowling Green, even to a national title.
Right.
But since the Olympic run and the Islander run, there was not a loss to end the season. So it was a weird feeling. It was just strange, and it just had to take a physical toll on everyone. I mean, the team was broken up shortly thereafter. The Butch Goring, Clark Gillies, John Tonelli, they weren't there that much longer. Bob Bourne did that. So it was the beginning of the end. The balloon had burst. They all knew it, but it was so hard. You know, obviously fans think, oh, you win 4, what's 5? But 5 would have been tying the Canadiens, wins for the ages, to be that close and to get there, let alone get there for the 5th time, would have been 20 straight series. Incomprehensible. But on the flip side, going way back to his first series against the Kings in 1980, he scored an overtime goal in Game 3. When that short series game, best of 5, could have gone either way, and Ken scoring overtime Game 3 in LA lifted them to a 2-1 lead. They rolled the Kings 6-0 in Game 4. If they don't win that Game 3, who knows? Yeah, maybe there's no dynasty at all. So there was adversity in the sort of early, we have to win, the pressure's on us to win, and then the sort of emotional adversity and the physical exhaustion adversity of finally not winning. Very tough. And then the years after that were just different. The final half of his career, second half, those 5 years were a lot of injuries, dealing with his knee. He managed to play. He had it drained off, and he was just a warrior. The guys knew it. The guys watched him play through that, and he just did his job. He kept going, kept playing, kept doing. Love of the game and just hard work. And his goaltenders loved him. He made a point to talk about how much they did love him. Billy Smith, he said, just was happy I stayed out of his way. I didn't screen him. Good idea. Kept guys to be outside, and we got along. Chico, of course, got along with everybody, but said he never made a mistake. So he was loved by teammates, defense partners, everyone. Dennis Potvin wrote the foreword for the book very eloquently. I mean, suddenly Ken Morrow, 6 days after the Olympics, finds himself paired with Dennis Potvin on the blue line at Nassau Coliseum in that Islander white, blue, and orange, less than a week after the gold medals around it.
Crazy time. Yeah. Crazy time for Kenny Morrow. And someone once told me there's 2 lines in life, one for the work and one for the credit. You might as well get on the line for the work because the line for the credit is always too long. And so Kenny Morrow really is one of those guys who epitomizes that because, to your point, Allan, Kenny Morrow is about getting the work done. And even to this day, he's been a scout for the Islanders for many, many years now. He's been part of the organization. A great guy to talk to. I'm really looking forward. I started the book. I'm looking forward to finishing it. Really great project by you. Once again, Miracle Gold, 4 Stanley Cups, and a lifetime of Islanders hockey. Kenny Morrow, his story going back to his childhood in Michigan all the way through his career in some of the biggest moments in hockey history. So, Allan, thanks for the time and good luck with the book.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll just add quickly, it was just a wonderful experience working with Kenny. He's just a great person. Yep. And the world needs great people like Ken that just do their job with humbleness and gratitude and bring it forward into the modern world. He's one of a kind, and I'm really honored to help him tell his story.
No question about it. I look forward, like I said, to reading the rest of the book. Thanks for the time. Good luck. I'll see you at the rink.
Okay, it's a deal.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
All right. We got a lot of Eastern Conference matchups today. Important playoff matchups in the East. We'll take a look at them next on First Shift. Here's a peek at the Eastern Conference wildcard standings, and it's wild because you can see here you got the 2 teams that are currently in, the Jackets and the Senators. Now, the Senators and the Canadiens are tied, but it's a regulation overtime wins category where the Senators have 1 more, so that's why they're in that playoff spot. And you can see the Bruins are right there at 52 points. They've been struggling lately, injuries. Rangers and Flyers, they're going at it tonight, 50 points, only a couple points out. And there's the Penguins and the Red Wings. And we still got the Islanders and the Sabres. And I'm not counting anybody out because that Eastern Conference, that mushy middle of the Eastern Conference has gotten, it's expanded.
Yeah.
It's expanded.
The mush has expanded.
It's expanded. So we got 3 games tonight. We'll whip through them quick between these teams. Start with the Flyers and the Rangers. Both teams playing better of late. And the Flyers, I'll tell you what, they drag it into the mud. They're blocking shots. They're getting better goaltending. Look at Samuel Ersson is back, playing better. You can see Igor Shesterkin when he's right and healthy. We know what he does. So somebody's streak is coming to an end tonight. As you can see, both have streaks where they've gained points. Flyers in 6, Rangers in 9.
Yeah, when John Tortorella can lean on his goalie like he is with Ersson right now, they're going to win a lot of hockey games. They play hard. They're tough to play against. I mean, they try and kill you along the boards, and if they win the battles along the boards and in front of the net, a lot of times they're winning these hockey games. So, and it's good to see some of the younger guys. Joel Farabee, I think, has been relatively
playing better again. Yeah,
playing a little better again. Was he a healthy scratch not too long ago?
Listen, with John Tortorella, there's got to be healthy scratches along the way. All I can say is I watched them beat the Devils 3-1 with an empty net goal on Saturday. And all I can tell you is that was a gritty, tight-checking, John Tortorella dreams about at night game because those guys were blocking shots and laying it on the line. They deserved those 2 points.
But how about the turnaround of the Rangers?
Been great.
6-0-3, really light. Well, Shesterkin and I don't know if we have his numbers, but I think we just saw them, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Back-to-back shutouts. The guy really impressed me in that last game against Ottawa was Philip Hedl. Yeah. And, of course, his name was in the newspaper about the possible trade as one of the pieces going to the Vancouver Canucks. I thought he played a real good game. And Jason Demers mentioned this yesterday on NHL Now is Bill Borgen. Will Borgen has done a real good job solidifying the defense. So they're a different team right now. They're playing with some confidence.
Yeah, all right. Let's get to I think it's the Red Wings and Canadians next. JD, what do you got for me? There you go.
There you go. Look at the Habs.
There you go. All right. Canadians, since December the 17th, I mean, I didn't see this coming. 13-3-1, goals up 3.5 goals against down. A lot of it has been Montembeault has been really good, and then they bring in Dobish, this kid that's kind of check-kate. He played at Ohio State when he was drafted. He was drafted out of like the North American Hockey League here in the U.S., so it just goes to show you that goalies can kind of come out of nowhere and become players. He's a big guy. But goaltending has been important for Montreal, and they're feeling confident right now and finding ways to win.
I got to call a couple of his games at Ohio State against Notre Dame.
So you've seen this guy?
I've seen him. He's the real deal. He's big, but he's athletic.
Yeah.
And he plays the puck. He plays the North American game. I want to say he played in the USHL a little bit.
Yeah, he played USHL and the North American League.
Okay, so he's used to the North American game. He settles things down. Montembeault's been great pretty much all year. But Dobish comes in, first game against the Florida Panthers, shutout. Then he beats Dallas. I want to say he beat Washington in there possibly?
Six straight wins to start his career, and he won an overtime game against the Rangers the other night. Stopped Trocheck on a breakaway and then slid over on a one-time opportunity, made another great save. So he's been good. Montembeault gets the start tonight, and Montembeault's been very good. Yeah. And the Red Wings, they had that push with Todd McClellan. Those first, they won 7 of their first 8. You can see now it's settling out a little bit. That power play is still crazy good at 41.9. But Steve, help me on the penalty kill.
Yeah. And
you know why he's yelling in that photo.
Yeah. Don't take any penalties. That's got to be better. When you're at 65%, you're not doing much right.
You're not making the playoffs.
Sometimes that's on the goalies, and sometimes it's on your structure, and we'll see exactly what it is there. But yeah, you're not going to survive long there.
All right, let's get to the last one. JD's Bruins and the Ottawa Senators tonight, and you can see the head-to-head. The Ottawa Senators had a great comeback win over the Bruins, ended up winning in overtime the last time they met. I believe that was the case. You can see here that. They've gotten the better things, but they're tight games. They're both overtime losses for the Bruins. Bruins have a bunch of injuries right now, Steve. I mean, think about it. They've been without Lindholm now for a long time. He's getting closer. Charlie McAvoy is not in the lineup right now, so that's problematic. Trent Frederick is a helpful guy for them. He's been ill and out of the lineup, so I don't know if he's going to be back in tonight. They've got some challenges right now.
Those are key injuries. When you take your top 2 defensemen, McAvoy is their best defenseman, Lindholm probably their number 2.
Yep.
Take your top 2 defensemen out, it changes your team. And I just look at the Washington Capitals, and they add Chychrun, and they add Matt Roy. They had 2 defensemen, and it has made them so much better. So for the Boston Bruins, it's going to be tough until those guys get healthy. They had a little nice run there, though, previously, where they scored, 21 goals in 4 games. So they were getting some goals. Now they just need to start preventing them. And goaltending's got to be better too.
Yeah, and for the Ottawa Senators, they're going to be an ornery bunch. I mean, they just lost to the Rangers 5-0 at the Garden. Brady Tkachuk is, I think, no points in this class. How does Brady Tkachuk go 8 games without any points?
Well, he can affect games in other ways, but they would like him to score goals because when he scores goals, he gets more confident and he plays better. But, he's still being Brady Tkachuk out there, but I'd like to see Brady Tkachuk with some points.
Yeah, well, he'd like to see him too. Maybe he'll get some tonight as the Bruins host the Senators up in Boston. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about that guy there, Tonio, one of the great goaltenders in NHL history. He's getting honored coming up this weekend. We'll talk about it next on First Shift. Got a tweet here from our friend John Bacon. He's written some really good hockey books. You want to check that out. Friday night, Michigan Tech will be awarding the late Tony Esposito its highest honor, the silver medal. Tony O was not only a top 50 NHL player, he never missed a class en route to his business degree and used it to lead at the NHLPA and with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Tony Esposito, he passed away in 2021, but one of the very great goaltenders, an innovator. He was the guy who used that butterfly style. I remember when he burst on the scene with Chicago. He had been a part of the Canadiens organization. He was credited with a cup there. But then he went to Chicago, won the Rookie of the Year and the Vezina Trophy in the same season, had an unbelievable year and a great career with the Hawks.
Yeah, and a great guy, too.
You got to know him, right?
Got to know him, know his wife, Marilyn, pretty well, and his two sons. And a good friend of mine, Bob Verdi. There's a picture of me and Tonio. That was probably back about 10 years ago, I'm thinking.
Okay.
That was during one of the outdoor games the Blackhawks played in. But my good friend Bob Verdi has written a number of baseball books, a number of hockey books, football books. He's going to be going up to Houghton, Michigan. That's where Michigan Tech is, to be a part of that. So, just a wonderful guy. He looked like he was 50 years old. He died at 78, but he was in such good shape. Always dressed to the nines, just a fantastic guy to be around.
Yeah, no question. One of the like I said, one of the great goaltenders in NHL history and an innovator in the way that he played.
One of the first guys to catch with he caught with his right hand.
Yeah, he was.
Roger Crozier probably before him, but then it was Tony.
There was probably guys throughout the history of the game, but those are the guys that you remember that stand out. So thanks to John Bacon for pointing that out to us, tweeting that out. Michigan State honoring one of their own, Tony Esposito, on Friday. That's it for us.
That's over?
Connie, that's it. I think you got to run over to do NHL now.
I do, but this flew.
I did. Well, get on your horse, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.